I didn't want people to know how fucked up my life was. I felt like I'd gone into living in a soap opera on the screen. It was so dramatic. Police were involved, and I just wanted to curl up into a cave. But yet I had to be out there advocating for my daughter. The grief is a really important part of this journey, and they actually have a term for special needs parents, is a term called complex grief, because it's just ongoing. It's every day looking at your child and realizing that they will never be the independent child that you assumed. So often we project those expectations onto our children, and with a lot of autistic children, they just will not conform to any kind of expectation. Therefore, we have to learn to love them in spite of that. Us as parents tend to go, how can I fix them? How can I fix them? But your energy is 99% of what's going on. How are you showing up in your home?
Hey everyone, it's Sophia from Sacred You. Thank you so much for being here. A quick message before we dive into today's conversation. You may have been watching the podcast videos but have not had a chance to hit that subscribe button. So if you've ever gained value from our videos, from our conversations, it would mean so much to us if you would hit that subscribe button below right now, or even just give us a like. And what that means is not only does it allow us to grow our subscriber base, but it allows us to bring in more important guests for you to listen to, and you will be one of the first ones to be notified. So please hit that subscribe button and let's get started on today's conversation.
Welcome everybody else out there, and welcome today. And today I have Samantha with me, and Samantha Wittenberg, beautiful name. Today we're going to have Samantha share her journey and share what she's come to share today. Samantha, I'd like for you to tell us a bit about yourself and what you would like to share with us today.
Thanks, Denise, and good greetings to everyone that's watching the recording. Especially, I just want to especially acknowledge the parents or carers of children with special needs. They're at times very challenging journeys that often go completely unseen. It is not something that there can be a lot of shame around what happens at home. And part of my work is to remove this kind of stigma and to come out and talk more about the things that can happen particularly with neurodivergent children, because there can be a lot of aggression and violence and just I'll share a bit about my journey. But so through my journey, I have learned various tools, and I've also learned what would have really supported me when I was younger and starting to go through this journey. So I help other parents and carers, and I have a speaking and coaching business. So I go out and speak about autism and neurodivergence and how we can create a more inclusive environment, a more empathic environment for not only the carers, but also neurodivergent people.
Yeah, I love that, because it seems to be so many more people now are coming forward and sharing that they're struggling with that. And it's not an every now and then in their lives, it's that more people are noticing, and the younger parents as well are coming more forward, which is awesome, and sharing that there's that struggle there, and that what is out there for us to be able to help our children and care for our children as well. So I really see that there is such a need for someone like you to go out and be that advocate for those children and those parents, which is so beautiful, Samantha. Now, understanding the problem why people struggle, many caregivers feel stuck in cycles of negative self-talk and guilt. Do you touch on that, where they're struggling with that with themselves and also with their having to navigate their way through children with neurodivergent?
Yeah, the negative self-talk, this applies to absolutely anyone on the planet. That is the thief of joy. And so, yeah, when we can find ways to regulate and reduce that noise in the head, that is probably the number one most effective strategy, if you can find strategies to do that. Some of the common thoughts that parents or carers would have is about, what did I do wrong? What did I do to create this? And I actually, I really struggled with that, because because of who I am and my lifestyle, my daughter had not had stable home life. Like, I kept moving, got divorced, had different partners, and actually I even went away for 2 years to get my law qualification, become a lawyer, which I couldn't do in the town where I was living, the city. And left, and she was with her dad for 2 years at quite a young age. And then so there were a whole lot of factors that I could have blamed myself for, and I did get very stuck in that negative loop of self-judgment. And then also judgments of your child, because you don't understand what's going on, you don't understand this different brain. So it's very easy to judge according to neurotypical standards, and often people will think of autistic or neurodivergent people as being rude. They might think they're awkward, selfish, inappropriate. Your behavior is inappropriate, that they're unreliable, or that they're lazy and they're not trying hard enough. So all these judgments come into play, and what I want to share today is how we can transform those judgments into gold, into precious. So they're the raw material, the coal that gets dug out, and then the gold is, you got to work it. You can't, you can dig out all the dross or whatever, the raw material, and you can sit with that forever, and that'll, like, you'll get buried in that. Or you can work that raw material with support and realize, okay, this is what I need, this is what my child needs, and then you've got a plan to move forward, instead of being problem orientated thinking, which the judgmental thinking is.
Yeah, it certainly isn't it, because we don't think about how can I support. We think about what aren't I doing well enough. So we actually go within ourselves and beat ourselves up, instead of thinking of ways how I can be of support to myself and as well as my children who are going through that. And understanding, understanding that my children is reacting to the world around them, and they're extremely sensitive. And I think that's a big thing that we don't recognize, is that they are sensitive, and on so many different levels. And it's about us tuning into ourselves and finding those and not judging ourselves. And I'd love to hear how you worked with yourself to really clear those judgments, be able to then really support your daughter.
Yeah, and I think, I just want to acknowledge that, yes, they are sensitive to the whole world. So it's not just what I or her parents have done. It is so much bigger than that. And that actually was the key on a more spiritual level, when I went into ceremonies and processes, was seeing that, hey, there is a much bigger picture. And yes, I've done certain things. She's come in with a purpose. She's chosen this life. I've chosen this life, and we have stuff to work out. And it relieved me of a lot of the burden. Honestly, our egos, we think we're so in control of everything. So that was the one sort of perspective that helped me to shift. But it was not a logical right brain, right, I'm just one little piece of the puzzle. It's got to come often through really accessing the grief first. There is no way through. The only way through, what's that saying? The only way through is through. You can't, the grief is a really important part of this journey. And they actually have a term for special needs parents, is a term called complex grief, because it's just ongoing. It's every day looking at your child and realizing that they will never be the independent child that you assumed when you had a child that you would have. Plus, what are they missing out on? Look at everything they're missing out on when you start comparing them to their peers. And as I said, how have I contributed to this? How have possibly doctors? I've got a friend whose a medical mistake was made when her child was a baby. She has been living with the consequences of that for 18 years, of a child that can't speak, the only thing she can really do is laugh and smile. And this is what has enabled my friend to actually rise above it. But if she got into the blame and judgment of the doctors, there's no way she'd have the energy to keep doing this incredible work that she's doing with her daughter.
Yeah, and I can hear that surrender is such a big thing in that, isn't it? Surrendering to what is and actually really feeling through that for yourself. So therefore you can clear that space within you to be able to be present with her, and other parents out there to be able to be more present and to be able to see their child, and that caring dissipates, because your child is so unique. Your daughter is so unique and so beautiful that she has a different way of living, and she sees the world differently, and you get to be a part of that and help her explore more of that. How beautiful is that? Yeah.
And it's a lesson in unconditional love, because so often we project those expectations onto our children. And with a lot of autistic children, they just will not conform to any kind of expectation. Therefore, we have to learn to love them in spite of that. The most common thing parents say is, how can I get my child to do what I want them to do? Which is, you just hear that over and over again, and you start to laugh at it, because this is not a helpful entry point into parenting, actually. So yeah, I could talk more about that, but
Yeah, that's beautiful. So yeah, you've got so much gold in there. And I really love that it is really all about the self-judgment, isn't it? And really finding, you said there's gold in there to be found so you can release that judgment.
That's right. And I'll say a bit more about that.
Beautiful.
What I've learned from nonviolent communication is to analyze those judgments and to extract the gold, the needs, the precious needs that are sitting inside the judgment. So the stronger we have, or the judgments we have, the more those needs are important to us. There's something that really matters to us. So that when we get, and this applies to political situations as well, the more upset and settled you get, and you find yourself using swear words about certain people, and that shows that you have needs that really matter. And I find it helpful that Tony Robbins, he's identified the 6 most important needs in us as humans, and they're common to every human on the planet. And so you can just, if you're listening to this, you can just think, what is a really strong judgment you've had, whether that's about yourself or your child or the political situation or the person who pulled out into the traffic in front of you. What is it that you wanted? And I'd like to just name them. So there's certainty and then uncertainty, and we want both. So certainty is like safety, predictability, but then also uncertainty is variety, adventure. So we have, at different times, we need those. And then there's, of course, there's love and connection, and growth and significance, and there's meaning and contribution. So often, and there's kind of levels of these where significance part of the ego wanting to be important, and that is a really important stage to have your voice heard and to matter. But like meaning and contribution might go a bit deeper. So if you think about that situation and you are able to identify the need, let's say it's with my child, maybe for me, it was about connection, because we used to connect very much when she was younger. And then when she became a teenager, she became aggressively, violently possessive over me and had very challenging behaviors. What I really needed was, I wanted to be able to connect like we used to, but there was no going back. She'd gone into a different stage. So what I had to do was I needed to teach myself about autism and to understand autism more so that I could find a way across that bridge and connect with her. So identifying the need, and the way I did that was through receiving empathy from empathy buddies and a nonviolent communication community. Mostly that was how I was able to move from being completely in judgment and what we call jackal, and which is very dysregulating, unsettling, and move to, all right, this is what I need. So what are the steps I can take to go towards that?
Yeah. And it's also for yourself is finding those communities, do you think? And actually really support you, and because it's not a journey, like we can do it on our own, but it's like a lonely journey. So that has its downfalls as well. So it's about reaching out into those parts of the communities that can support you as well. And I'd love to share, love for you to share the impact that has had on you.
Yes. So I've had different communities. I think it's really vital to set up some kind of circle of support around you and your child. So whether that's a care team with, like we have with an OT, with a support coordinator, and then a couple of support workers, a friend, all of those make up our care team. Or you can have a circle of support with friends, neighbors, people who have an interest in seeing this person thrive as someone with a disability. And it applies to anyone, actually, even without it. Parenting is for me, it was really a challenge. I had no idea what I was doing, no idea, no clue. And it is something you can learn, and it is a skill. You need support. So yeah, setting up a circle of support where you meet on a regular basis and you share, you brainstorm. But the person at the center of the circle, like my daughter, she needs to be the center. So it's like whatever she is wanting to work on, or her goals or her challenges, is what you focus on, and you start to build her capacity to speak up for herself, to say, through this process, my daughter started to talk, to really come out of her shell and to share what she wanted. And then you've got this sort of brain's trust of people around, who, preferably local community, who know what the resources are around you and can say, and can help you. If that person is wanting a bit of work experience, someone in the circle might know someone who runs a small business, and they'll say your child can come in for a week and they'll be held in the space, they'll be able to do whatever is in their capacity and have that experience. Or reaching out to neighbors and inviting them to join the circle, even if it's just for a few meetings or a one-off meeting. The connections that you build through that are really strong.
That's beautiful. Yeah, and it is so needed, isn't it? And I feel that used to be an old time thing, but we went away from that. And now we're coming
village.
back to that. Yeah, absolutely. So people want to have that connection now on a totally different level.
Absolutely. The village. I was on a call last night which morphed into this discussion about AI. And yeah, I just think it's really important to come back. And I'm fortunate that, and my daughter lives in a small town where she goes down to the market. Many people there know her. Wherever she goes in town, she's known, and people watch out for her.
Yeah.
And honestly, I don't know how we would have coped without that. It was a really important part of finding ways to make sure she could be independent.
Yeah, it's such I do, as you speak, it's such a surrendering of yourself and, like you say, the ego, to really let go and invite everything in, to be able to support you and your daughter. And I love how people will watch out for her, and I think that happens more than what we think.
Absolutely. You don't know how many people are watching, and occasionally someone will comment and share with me how much more confident she is now and things like that. But what you said, surrendering and letting in all the support, that really struck a chord with me, because I resisted that for so long. I didn't want people to know how fucked up my life was. I felt like I'd gone into living in some kind of soap opera on the screen. It was so dramatic. Police were involved, and I just wanted to curl up into a cave where nobody would see me or want anything from me. But yet I had to be out there advocating for my daughter, trying to raise supports, communicating, negotiating with people that had been really impacted and affected by certain of her behaviors, and trying to smooth things over. And there was no way I could just be the recluse that I would have loved to have been at that stage.
Obviously, you weren't here to be a recluse.
No.
This is what your daughter has helped you not be.
That's right. That's right. And I would have been, probably, if I hadn't had her. And yeah, there's so much potential that would not have been developed in me. I would have chosen the easy way. And Tony Robbins says, the path of least resistance will never make you proud. And that was a really important life learning for me in this life. It has been.
Beautiful.
Because yes, I do want to be proud of what I have done and of who I have become. I want to be proud of who I have become, and not so much what I've done, but who I've become. And that comes back to the self-talk, because when we're proud of who we are and that we actually feel we contributing, that self-talk goes right away or gets really quiet.
Yeah.
Because we've got something else to focus on. We've got something way bigger, way more meaningful and important. Like you're wanting to help other people. So,
and look, I totally hear you. And when you advocate for yourself, it is a true act of love, isn't it? Love and compassion to see your way through all your own judgments, to have the best outcome for you, because we can stay in the judgment, which is really in discomfort, but we've got to go through that discomfort to come out to the freedom of really seeing ourselves and being able to therefore open ourselves, surrender, and give our children who are going through these, or any child who goes through anything, that we're able to be present for them. So I really love that we get to advocate for ourselves.
yeah, because nobody else is going to do it.
That's right.
Unless you're on NDIS and you get support workers. But I would far rather see people empowering themselves, if possible, with
Well,
support.
that's where the greatest learning, aren't they, for you? Because what is one of the greatest learnings that you found for yourself out of having to navigate this for yourself?
There are so many, but ultimately it's like what I said, it was overcoming challenges helps us to be more resilient and feel empowered. I can do this. I did this. I had the choice. I could have stayed in South Africa, and there were people who said to me, your daughter doesn't need you. Just let her be. She will be okay. I could have stayed in South Africa. And at a certain point, I had to make that choice. Do I leave my whole life pretty comfortable? I was working as a lawyer. I had a beautiful little cottage on the mountainside, but between the mountain and the sea. I was in a relationship. I had an incredible network of community and friends, and I was in my late 40s. And I got a phone call, you're needed. And up until that point, because my daughter had come a few years before to Australia, she has family from her dad's side here. And up until that point, it had been a case of I'd been coming over for long visits to Australia, but it was in the too hard basket because I didn't have any way or the financial means to get citizenship or to get permanent residence even here. I just couldn't see my way to doing that. So I would come on a tourist visa. And then at a certain point, I had to make that decision. Do I just leave everything I have? Everything. All I could take was one suitcase. The rest had to be packed up. I didn't know when I would see anyone again. My partner, my close friends, all of that. And by that stage, I had completely maxed out my credit card in coming over to Australia, going back home. And so I had no money. I came over with no money and a suitcase and landed. And that was me. And that was this incredible mix of dark night of the soul, but mixed in with that was this incredible spiritual growth because I had nothing. And not only did I have nothing, I was now having to navigate a system, a completely foreign system, with a child with a serious disability, with no support, and all of those things. My only support was spiritual. That was very powerful. So going through those experiences, I've just come back from a vision quest of 4 days and nights fasting in the forest on my own. each time we go through those things, we just expand and we grow and we know what we're capable of and that we trust more. We can expand our hearts, love, trust, confidence, competence, knowing I can take care of myself, like that, all those things. So that's the long answer.
Oh
That's
no,
what I got out of it.
that's a beautiful answer. And as we're here talking about the pathway or pathways of well-being, this is what it's all about. And I think that's a beautiful saying and sharing all of that, because it is, we've got to allow, mothers have to allow themselves space to really be able to care and nurture for themselves and see themselves and know themselves, to be able to come back and then do that for others, for those in their family that needs them, and be able to,
Absolutely, yeah,
look after the
absolutely.
needs of everybody else. Because if you're not doing it for yourself first, you can't do it for everybody else.
And it's not sustainable. There's
No.
no way you can keep going and keep yourself healthy. And if you're not taking time for yourself, we become addicted to those drugs, just like people can get addicted to nicotine and alcohol. They've, science has realized we get addicted to the cortisol, the adrenaline that's pumping through when you're on that constant hypervigilant, in that hypervigilant state. So when you go out and you go and sit under a tree, you just like, you can't connect, you can't switch off, your mind's still racing. So that's where I can help people to regulate and slow down and to connect with themselves, with nature. And sometimes we do need support to do that, because when you've been in that incredibly high stress environment and then suddenly you're like on a respite, you need support to make that transition. You don't just automatically, oh, great, I've got time off now, I'm going to have a wonderful time. There's grief, there's all of that. The whole system goes, okay, now I can start to release all the shit that has been building
Absolutely.
up.
Such a foreign matter, isn't it? And when you talk about that, one of my daughters is a school teacher, and school holidays, she gets a cold or she gets sick because her body goes, oh, now you're resting. Now I
That's
can
right.
relax and deal with all of this. So I love the fact that you help people and share and take people through so they can do that in a gentle way with themselves, instead of going cold turkey. It's so uncomfortable, isn't it? It's such a discomfort because as you would know yourself, you're so used to having to be on that high
That's
of
right.
the go. So stopping is an unknown commodity for
That's
somebody.
right. And that's why people don't, like you say, self-care, 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 but they don't, because it doesn't feel good. It
Yeah.
doesn't even feel good. So why would you want to do it? You just rather keep drinking the coffee and keep on that roller coaster of the drug, which although, and those drugs are very highly aging and contribute to disease and aging. So our bodies are, we are not designed to be that cortisol and adrenaline. That is only for when the big tiger comes and is about to pounce and you need to run. Those drugs are produced by the body only to deal with emergency situations. So when they're constantly, look, I'm not a scientist or a doctor, but from what I've heard, they do a lot of damage when they just being produced 24/7. That
Yeah.
really, because it's like that the body's giving you everything it's got to just go for it and run away from that tiger. But then you're getting that 24/7. That's like aging however many years in instead of 1 year.
Oh,
It's just
absolutely.
speeds
Absolutely. And
it all
yes.
up.
Yeah, which I'd love to know some of the things that how do you help mothers actually start to navigate themselves and advocate for themselves and surrendering. I love that word, to surrender to themselves and really come back and nurture and love themselves.
Yeah, obviously everyone's journey is going to be unique. So through the coaching, I have an eight-week coaching program where we first have to identify what is your big goal outside of being a carer. Obviously, it needs to be aligned with being a carer, but it might just be to spend an hour in the garden on the weekend. That might be the big goal, or it might be to write a book. And so we spend a lot of time looking at the goal that you're most likely to succeed in, because it's completely aligned with your values, aligned with being a carer, and so on. And then once you've identified the goal, all the blocks will start to come up. So we work through those, all the conflicts, values conflicts, and emotional blocks, work through those, and then the path is clear towards that goal, then we create a plan, a specific doable action plan that you can carry out to make sure you achieve that goal. And yeah, so that's the 8-week program. I'm running in-person workshops with a health service provider like Bendigo Health, and they offer these workshops for free to carers. And most towns in Australia will have a carer organization in their town. So if you reach out to those, you can access free workshops and outings and things. There's also carer helplines. That's not me, but there are carer helplines Australia-wide. I also offer empathy sessions. So it doesn't need to be a coaching program. It could be a once-off empathy session of just listening without judgment and reflecting back to help you to get clarity. And that's a free call. And yeah, I'll share the link for that.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, the links will be all put in. So anyone who wants to really seek out more of themselves with Samantha, really touch in. And it's a press of the button at the end of the day. And it's a real curiosity to actually see, isn't it? What could work for each individual. And if we look at it that way, be curious, and you get to open up and see yourself so much.
Yes, and with trauma, with this kind of stress, we lose our curiosity. We're just in survival mode. So what I would say to anyone who is there is, it's a little bit of a warning that if you continue, what is going to happen if you continue doing the same thing you're doing? Where are you going to be in 5 years' time? And how is that going to support your child? How is that going to support you to be a more empowered carer or parent? Sometimes we need to do a bit of a reality check and say, yeah, something has to change. If I keep doing the same things every day, then nothing is going to change. I'm going to be the same person I am in a few years' time. I'm going to be having the same struggles. I'm going to be thinking the same thoughts unless I do something to shift that. That's where I can help. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I love that, because that's really, because the people they're in that fight or flight. So thank you for sharing that. That's really important. Absolutely important. So I really love that. Is there anything that you would love to share that someone out there, like you've quite touched on it, but is there anything that we've missed that you would love to share?
I suppose just the importance of connecting with the natural world, what you could call the more than human world, because you are then able to tap into obviously the grounding of the earth and connecting to your food somehow by being in a community garden or growing a few things yourself. And then where does your water come from? What is the quality of your air that you're breathing? Like, these things are fundamental, and there's something when you're grounded in your physical environment, you have so much more capacity to handle whatever comes to you. So you're not living in your head, you're in your body, and not only does it feel much better, but you're tapping into a bigger support network of the energies that are there. The earth is supporting you, the plants, the birds, they're all part of us.
That's
And children these days and adults are just spending a terrifying amount of time on devices and not going into the natural world, and that's increasing the anxiety, the judgmental thinking, but particularly anxiety, and that drives people to behave in ways that are not life-serving.
Yeah, would you say like they're giving themselves away to everything else on the outside of them and not really coming to self and seeing?
Not coming home to themselves.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, and I really got from what you were saying is that being aware,
Yeah.
their awareness that, and if they're picking up the devices, that awareness to see, I get to make a choice here, like you were saying earlier. I get to make a choice of whether I keep scrolling or I put it down and go and sit out in the garden. Or go for that walk or eat that beautiful piece of fruit, really being aware of what my choices are.
That's right. Because as we know, particularly neurodivergent children are very sensitive. So your energy is, the more grounded you are, the more regulated they are going to be. And a lot of us as parents tend to go, how can I fix them? How can I fix them? But your energy is 99% of what's going on. How are you showing up in your home? So whatever you can do to ground and regulate, that is the most important thing. It's more important than getting them to the therapist, in my opinion. If you're having to rush around trying to make therapist appointments and try out the latest, greatest strategy and rushing to spending all your time researching that on the computer while your child's dysregulated, rather focus on your energy, what's happening with your energy.
Oh, I love that you touch on that, because that's energy is energy. So whatever we feel and think and say, it touches those who it's closest to us. They're reacting to it constantly. So if you're feeling that way about yourself, they're feeling that.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I really love that you touched on that. I think that is really important for parents to know for their children, whether they're neurotypical or neurodivergent. Our children feel everything. They don't have all those filters on them to stop them from feeling or think they've stopped feeling. But so, yeah, I really appreciate that, because I think that is such an important thing to do for yourself and for your children. But yeah, it's been so beautiful talking to you and sharing that it is a way to navigate the world. And I love how you're navigating and advocating for yourself and your daughter, but also advocating for other mothers out there as well, and fathers as well, to be able to
Definitely.
give them your knowledge and what you've learned, for them to be able to go out and do the same. Because I feel that's the importance. We can, like you said, you can go and find the next big thing, but it is about personally yourself first.
Yeah, thanks, Denise, for listening and just being so encouraging and acknowledging me and the importance of this work. So really appreciate it.
Very important. And all the information for Samantha will be in the link. So I encourage you to really reach out and start changing the narrative and start changing that judgment and create a new world for yourself and your children. It's the best thing you can do. And it's, Samantha, what I always say is that I can't change the world, but if I change myself, the world around me changes.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
and I feel that's what you're doing. So it's so beautiful.
There's a beautiful quote. When I see differently, then everything I see changes.
Yeah.
When, yeah, I can't remember it right now.
Yeah. No, that's beautiful. So yes, thank you. That was
Thank you,
awesome.
Denise.
As we wrap up today's enlightening episode of the Pathways to Wellbeing podcast, I would like to thank Samantha Wittenberg for such a heartfelt conversation. Samantha's final thoughts truly encapsulate the essence of this journey. When I see things differently, everything I see changes. Her story reminds us that healing begins within and that shifting our perspective can shift everything around us. And if you would like to explore Samantha's work further, be sure to check out her offerings, including her 8-week coaching program for carers and free empathy sessions. Samantha supports parents and carers in reclaiming their strength, quietening their inner critic, and reconnecting with joy and meaning. You will find all the details in the notes below. At Sacred You, we are committed to creating a space where women from all over the world can support, uplift, and empower each other. Visit Sacred You's website to explore upcoming workshops, events, and community offerings. Check us out at www.sacredyou, that's the letter U, .love. And as always, if this episode spoke to you, please subscribe to our podcast, share it with a friend, or leave us a review. And as Samantha shared, the path of parenting, especially as a caregiver to a neurodivergent child, is one that calls us inward before we can show up outwardly. Until next time, stay grounded, stay inspired, stay connected, and keep walking your pathway to well-being.